There are just about 8 weeks to go until the federal election. Party leaders are trying to win over voters, especially the uncommitted ones. And according to a recent public opinion survey from the Angus Reid Institute, more than half of Canadians haven't decided who they'll vote for. Hannah Thibodeau is with our Canada Votes team. And Hannah, what is top of mind? First of all, what's top of mind for these voters?
Yeah, imagine 52% of voters who haven't committed. They're still deciding, they're flexible, but they have issues that they want top priorities. So take a look at this and they'll see how those uncommitted voters think and break down those issues. So 71% say improving healthcare access. So that's the #1 priority for them. Transparency and honesty in the federal government, that is #2, and maybe that has to do with the SNC-Lavalin affair. Then we have climate change. After that, 58% say access to affordable housing. And then finally, the amount of taxes I pay. But there's lots of different issues in there, everything from immigration to deficits, to how they act on the international stage, to LGBTQ issues for Canadians.
Right. And were you going to talk about Eric Grenier?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
I was. Oh, yeah. So, and in talking all this, sorry about that, I did have a chance to speak with our very own poll analyst, Eric Grenier, and he explains why these issues are so important.
Healthcare is one of those things that's always one of the top issues in polls, whether it's done at the provincial or the federal level. Canadians have a lot of concerns about the healthcare system, and so it's always one of their top issues. But it is harder for federal parties to have a real impact on that. So what's interesting is when you look at the other ones, because it does dovetail with a lot of the things we expect to hear over the next few weeks. Climate change. Big issue, of course, for the Liberals, for the Greens, the New Democrats, the Bloc. They're all going to be hammering about climate change. When you see, though, the other ones, you have housing affordability. That's a big one for the NDP, and one that they think is an issue that can play well for them, particularly in the Vancouver area. And then taxes and the cost of living. That is what we're going to hear a lot about from Andrew Scheer. We saw just in their campaign slogan, it's time for you to get ahead. It's about just that pocketbook issues that often is a really important and decisive issue in any election.
Who knows? All of this could change, but for now, this is where Canadians are. So improving healthcare access is a top issue for uncommitted voters. Break that down for us.
Right. So top issue healthcare. So if you look at that, one of the big issues that we are likely to see in that healthcare debate is the debate over a national pharmacare system. So if you break it down so far, how the parties are promoting this, the Liberals, of course, they say that they want a national pharmacare system, but they're not saying whether it's going to be a universal single payer one. That's something still to come, likely in the election campaign. As for the Conservatives say that they would take steps to reduce drug prices for those who need it the most. But not only that, they're more of a fill the gaps kind of approach, not that national pharmacare. They say it's simply too expensive. Then we have the NDP in their platform, which has been released already. They would go for a universal national pharmacare system as of next year. So that would be pretty fast to implement that, and pretty expensive too. And then finally, the Greens, they also say they would do a universal healthcare or pharmacare.
I just want to say this is where Canadians appear to be, because this is a poll. We don't know exactly how 37 million people, so just to
absolutely
clarify that point. Another issue is for Canada is transparency of the government, and as you mentioned, it feels as though, who knows, it feels as though this could be around the whole SNC-Lavalin controversy.
And that's the #2 issue for these uncommitted voters at this time. So when you think of that, that's a high number, 70%. However, here's the caveat to that, Andrew. When these people, sane people, are asked if you can only pick one issue, what issue would that be? Then the transparency and honesty in the federal government goes from 70% to 7%. So it's not their single most important issue. The single most important issue for these uncommitted voters, climate change tops it at 23%, and then healthcare access at 18%. So going back to this transparency and honesty, again, we spoke with poll analyst Eric Grenier, and he breaks that down as well. Take a listen.
Everybody wants to have an honest, transparent government. When it comes to making their decision about who they're going to vote for, it might not be as important as some other issues. And when you've seen that in the polls, we haven't seen any real impact from the Ethics Commissioner's report now just almost 2 weeks ago. Really, we've seen the Liberal numbers holding firm. There have been some other surveys, for example, from Abacus Data that found that of the people who knew something about the report, the vast majority of them, it just confirmed what they already thought. So I think that's what we're seeing here is that for a lot of Canadians, something they didn't like about the Prime Minister. It's one of the reasons why the Liberals have lost some support, and Justin Trudeau in particular, but not necessarily the kind of thing that is going to move their vote away from the Liberals to one of the other parties.
So that's transparency in government, but also, as I said, for one single issue, it would be climate tops at 23% and then healthcare access at 18%. It's different age groups for each of those. So what's interesting, Andrew, is this is really shaping up to be a close race,
right,
as we've heard from Eric.
But don't you think it's interesting? I mean, you've covered campaigns. Campaigns matter. Unforeseen events happen. Though, you know,
Look at what happened in the last election.
Right.
We went into that election campaign. It was an 8-week campaign. And at the beginning of that campaign, it looked like it would be Prime Minister Tom Mulcair. And in third place was the Liberal leader at the time, Justin Trudeau. So that completely flipped around at that, you know, in that election. So yes, campaigns do matter. We don't know when the writ's going to drop. And in particular, when you look at these uncommitted voters, this percentage is really high, 52%. A lot of people say that's because people simply don't want to be a part of party politics anymore. They have their own issues, and you see them there. So if you look at this, you're going to see a lot of persuasion from the parties coming. It's a sizable chunk, and they could potentially decide
or it
this
could
election.
just be August and people are at the lake or they're barbecuing, they're enjoying the last few days of summer, and then they'll re-engage in a couple
I
of
hope
weeks.
they're engaging now.
Sure they are. Hannah, thank you. The
You're
CBC's Hannah Thibodeau with our Canada Votes team.